My name is Wendy Caggiano. I'm 34 years old, and I used to believe the worst kind of betrayal was cheating. Turns out there's something worse when your husband betrays you in the name of family. Jerry and I had been together for almost a decade. 3 kids, a house that never seemed quiet, and a rhythm that felt safe, boring even. I thought that was a good thing. Safe meant loyal. Loyal meant stable. But stability is a lie people tell themselves right before their world collapses. It started the way most disasters do, quietly. Jerry became distracted, evasive, spending weekends helping Lydia and Brian with something important. Lydia, my younger sister, had always been close to us. She and Jerry got along too well sometimes, but I never thought much of it. She'd been trying to get pregnant for years, and I knew how painful that was for her. When Jerry said he was just being supportive, I believed him. Until one night, I found out what supportive really meant. He was in the shower, his phone buzzing on the nightstand. I shouldn't have looked, but something in me already knew. The message preview froze me in place. Lydia. The clinic said the results look good. I can't thank you enough for doing this. My pulse spiked. Clinic results. I opened the message thread. There were dozens of text references to appointments, blood tests, legal documents. Then one photo, a scanned form, the header reading, Donor Consent Agreement. Jerry's name was printed neatly on the line beside the word, Sperm Donor. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. My husband, the father of my children, had secretly agreed to help my sister conceive a baby using his own DNA. When he came out of the shower towel around his waist, humming like it was any other night, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding the printed form. He froze. The color drained from his face. "What is this?" I asked, my voice steady, almost calm. That calm you get before you fall apart. "Wendy." He took a step forward, hands raised. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" I snapped. "Because it looks like you're planning to father my sister's child." He ran a hand through his wet hair, pacing. "Lydia and Brian have been struggling for years. They've spent their savings on IVF. She's devastated, Wendy. You've seen her. I wanted to help." "Help." My voice cracked. "By giving her your sperm. By creating a child with my sister behind my back." "It's just genetics," he argued. "No one's cheating here. It's not physical. It's a medical donation." I laughed, sharp, bitter. "You donated our marriage, Jerry, not your DNA." He flinched. "You don't understand. Lydia begged me not to tell you. She didn't want you to get hurt." I stared at him, numb. "So your solution to protect me from pain was to lie to me?" He took another step closer, voice rising. "I was trying to do something good, something selfless." "No," I said quietly. "You were trying to feel like a hero, and heroes don't destroy their own families for applause." We stood there, silence between us, heavier than any argument we'd ever had. Then he said it, the sentence that killed whatever was left. "If you can't support this, maybe we shouldn't be together." It wasn't a threat, it was a declaration. I felt the last thread of patience snap inside me. "You want to be a savior, Jerry, fine. Save her. Be there for her. But don't you dare ask me to play along." He opened his mouth, but I was already walking out of the room. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely grab the doorknob. Down the hallway, our kids were asleep, blissfully unaware that the sound of their parents' voices had just shifted from love to something sharp and final. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, staring at the glow of the lamp, the donor form folded neatly on the coffee table. Every few minutes, I caught myself glancing at the framed photo on the wall. Me, Jerry, and Lydia laughing at a barbecue 2 summers ago. I'd never noticed how close Jerry was standing to her in that picture, how comfortable they looked. The realization settled like cold lead in my stomach. This wasn't about science. It was about loyalty. And his wasn't with me anymore. When dawn broke, I gathered the form, placed it on his pillow, and whispered to the empty room, "If you want to build a new family, then build it. But don't expect me to clean up the pieces." After that night, something inside me went quiet. Not numb, just eerily, dangerously quiet. People always imagine betrayal explodes like fireworks. But the truth is, it's more like a power outage. One second, everything's lit. The next, you're standing in the dark, realizing the warmth you felt was just borrowed light. Jerry and I didn't separate immediately. In our country, you have to live apart for 12 months before a divorce becomes legal. We agreed he'd move into the guest room until we sorted things out. But the word sorted didn't mean anything anymore. We both knew this marriage was already a carcass, and we were just circling it, pretending it still breathed. The first week after the discovery, he tiptoed around the house like a stranger. Every time we crossed paths, he'd mumble something about the kids or dinner, then disappear. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just let the silence speak for me. It was louder than rage ever could be. Our children sensed it. Kids always do. Mommy Emma whispered one night as I tucked her in, "Are you mad at Daddy?" I smiled a lie that tasted like metal. "No, sweetheart. Just tired." She nodded sleepily, unaware of how much truth that one word carried. A few days later, I caught him in the kitchen early in the morning. He was pouring coffee, half-dressed, eyes hollow. "You're going to the clinic again?" I asked. He froze mid-pour. "Lydia called," he said cautiously. "She wants to run one last test, just to make sure everything's successful." Successful. I repeated the word sharp and foreign in my mouth. "That's what you call it now." He set the mug down a little too hard. "Don't do this, Wendy." "Do what I said," leaning against the counter. "Ask why you're still helping my sister build a family while ours is falling apart." His jaw tightened. "You don't understand what this means to her. Lydia's been through." "I know what she's been through," I snapped. "I'm her sister, but apparently I'm the only one who wasn't included in this miracle." He rubbed his forehead, looking exhausted. "You're twisting this into something ugly. It's just science. I'm not sleeping with her," I finished coldly. "No, Jerry, you didn't have to. You just gave her your DNA, your loyalty, your time, everything that used to belong to me. So tell me what's left." He didn't answer, and somehow that silence hurt more than if he'd shouted. Weeks passed like that. We shared a roof, but not a life. I slept with the door locked, not because I was scared of him, but because I couldn't stand to breathe the same air. He spent his evenings on the phone with Lydia and Brian, whispering updates. I'd walk past and hear words like implantation viability procedure. It felt like listening to a stranger talk about a future that should have been mine. One evening, while clearing the dinner table, I saw his phone light up again. "Lydia, thank you for everything. You're the reason this is happening." My hand trembled as I put the plate down. The message didn't sound like gratitude anymore. It sounded like intimacy, the kind that thrives in secrets. That night I wrote in my journal, "He's creating a life for my sister while killing ours one lie at a time. And the cruelest part, he thinks he's being noble." A month later, Lydia invited the family over for dinner. My parents, always eager to fix what shouldn't be fixed, thought it was a chance to heal old wounds. I didn't want to go, but if I refused, it would become gossip, and Lydia had already taken enough from me. When we arrived, she was glowing, literally glowing. She met me at the door, one hand resting over her stomach. "Wendy," she said, smiling nervously, "we did it. I'm pregnant." It took everything in me not to flinch. Behind her, Brian hovered awkwardly, avoiding eye contact. Jerry stood beside him, his expression soft, proud, almost paternal. The room tilted. Everyone started talking at once. Congratulations, laughter, clinking glasses. I stood in the corner, watching the scene unfold like a slow-motion nightmare. When Lydia's hand brushed Jerry's arm as she thanked him again, I felt something inside me snap, not with fury, but with clarity. I smiled, the kind of smile people wear at funerals. Then I set my glass down, leaned toward Jerry, and whispered, "You just became a father again. Don't expect me to raise this one, too." He looked at me, eyes wide, but I was already walking toward the door. Behind me, someone called my name. I didn't turn back. Outside, the night air felt thick, heavy with the scent of wet grass, and something else, freedom. The kind that doesn't come with joy, only finality. When I got home, I sat on the couch staring at the quiet house. The kids' drawings were still on the fridge, their shoes by the door. My family, what was left of it, was still here. I whispered to the silence, "You gave my sister a child. You gave me a reason to leave." And somehow that felt like closure. The night Lydia gave birth, the house was so still I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. I wasn't there, of course. Jerry was. He didn't even tell me she'd gone into labor. I found out the same way everyone else did through my mother's excited phone call. "She did it, Wendy," she said breathlessly. "Lydia just delivered a healthy baby girl. Jerry was amazing. He stayed by her side the whole time." I didn't know which part stung more, that my mother thought this was something to celebrate, or that she didn't notice her voice was describing my husband. When she hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the blank TV screen. The silence around me felt like it was breathing. Every shadow in the room looked heavier. Then I noticed Jerry's wedding ring on the kitchen counter. He'd stopped wearing it weeks ago. I guess he'd finally decided not to pretend anymore. He came home 2 days later. His eyes were tired, but his voice carried that strange kind of joy people have when they believe they've done something noble. "She's beautiful," he said as if I'd asked. 7 pounds, dark hair, perfect little hands. "Lydia's doing great." I didn't look at him. I just kept wiping the counter over and over until my knuckles went white. That's nice, I said flatly. I'm sure Brian appreciates you being there more than her actual husband. He froze. Don't start this again, Wendy. Then stop giving me reasons to. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. You're being cruel. No, I said, finally turning to him. I'm being honest. You made a child with my sister. That's not cruelty, Jerry. That's insanity. He slammed his hand against the counter. You make it sound filthy. It wasn't like that. You're right, I said quietly. It's worse. The following week, the photos started arriving. My mother sent them through the family group chat. Lydia, in her hospital gown, Jerry standing beside her, smiling at the newborn. He looked proud, radiant even. I didn't delete the photos, I saved them. Proof I told myself for the divorce case, but really it was something uglier. I wanted to remember what betrayal looked like when it wore the mask of goodness. The kids saw one of the photos accidentally on my phone. Emma pointed at it and said, Daddy's holding a baby. Who's that? I swallowed hard. That's your Aunt Lydia's baby. She kinda looks like us, Emma said with a giggle. Same eyes. My throat tightened. I managed to smile. Maybe that's just a coincidence. But it wasn't, and I knew it. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. Every time I saw that child's picture, it felt like staring into a version of my own children that didn't belong to me. Jerry tried to keep his life with Lydia separate, but secrets never stay contained. Some nights he'd come home late, smelling faintly of baby lotion and formula. When I confronted him, he'd insist he was just checking in. She's exhausted, he'd say. Brian's working double shifts. She needs help. She needs boundaries, I shot back. And you need to remember which house is yours. He stared at me like I was speaking another language. You're heartless, maybe I said, but at least I'm not faithless. He stormed out that night and didn't come back until morning. I didn't ask where he'd been. I didn't need to. A few weeks later, Lydia called me. Her voice was shaky, the kind that comes right before a breakdown. Wendy, she said. I don't know who else to talk to. Brian's barely speaking to me. He says he can't look at the baby without seeing Jerry. I think he's going to leave. I gripped the phone tighter. You should have thought about that before asking my husband to play God. She started crying. Please don't hate me. I just wanted a child. I don't hate you, I said coldly. I just stopped feeling sorry for you. She went quiet. I could hear the baby crying faintly in the background. I thought Jerry would make things better, she whispered. I thought he'd keep us together. I almost laughed. Jerry doesn't fix people, Lydia. He breaks them while pretending he's saving them. Before she could respond, I ended the call. That night, Jerry came home looking wrecked. He didn't even take off his coat. Brian's gone, he said softly. He packed his things and left. Lydia's falling apart. I'm sure she'll survive, I said. He looked at me, eyes red. You don't mean that. Oh, I do, I said calmly. You two made this mess together. Now you get to live in it. His voice cracked. You really don't care, do you? I set down my tea and looked him dead in the eye. I cared when you were still my husband. Now you're just the man who gave my sister a child. He stood there silent, his face collapsing under the weight of what he'd done. Then he whispered almost to himself, I thought I was doing something good. You weren't, I said. You were just trying to feel important again. When he finally went to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen. The clock ticked softly. Somewhere across town, a baby with my husband's eyes was crying in another woman's arms, and for the first time since everything began, I didn't feel pain. I felt clarity. This wasn't my burden to carry. Not anymore. I'd already raised one family. I wasn't about to raise his mistakes too. The first time I saw Lydia, after the baby was born, she showed up at my house unannounced. It was late afternoon, sunlight cutting through the curtains. Dust floating in the air, the kind of stillness that feels like it's holding its breath. I opened the door to find her standing there, hair, messy eyes, swollen baby in her arms. She didn't even say hello. I can't do this alone, she whispered. Please, Wendy. For a moment, I couldn't move. The baby, her baby Jerry's baby, squirmed softly, a tiny sound that made my stomach twist. I stepped aside without thinking. Come in. She sat on the couch, clutching the baby like a lifeline. Her fingers trembled. Brian's gone. He won't even answer my calls. I thought Jerry would help, but he's different, distant. I don't know what to do anymore. Maybe stop expecting men who break things to fix them, I said quietly. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean to hurt you. I swear I didn't. I stared at her. My little sister, the girl I used to protect from everything. Now the woman who'd torn my family apart. You didn't just hurt me, Lydia. You gutted me. She shook her head, voice cracking. You don't understand what it's like to want something so badly that you'd do anything. I do, I cut in sharply. I wanted a husband who respected me. I wanted a sister who didn't use my life as her backup plan. We both wanted impossible things. The baby whimpered, a soft, helpless cry. Lydia rocked her gently, whispering, "It wasn't supposed to be like this." "It never is," I said. "That's the thing about betrayal. It always starts with good intentions." She looked at me with such raw shame that for a fleeting second I almost pitied her. But then she said, "He still loves you, you know. He talks about you all the time." Something inside me went cold. "Don't," I said firmly. "Don't try to dress this up as some tragic love triangle. You had choices, Lydia, and so did he." Her tears spilled over. "I just wanted to give Brian a child. I thought Jerry could help without it meaning this." "Then maybe you should have asked someone who wasn't my husband." She flinched as if I had slapped her. "You don't have to be cruel." "I'm not," I said softly. "I'm being honest. There's a difference." 2 days later, Jerry's mother showed up at my door. She'd never been one for confrontation, but grief had sharpened her into something fierce. "Wendy," she said, stepping inside without asking, "you have to stop this. Jerry's falling apart. Lydia's a wreck. The family's in pieces." "The family was in pieces the moment your son decided to play God," I said. She set a casserole dish down on the counter, her way of pretending this was a polite visit. He was trying to do a good thing. "By lying to his wife?" I asked. "By giving my sister his child and pretending I should just applaud him for being noble." Her lips trembled. "You've always been jealous of how close they were." I stared at her, stunned. Jealous. The word felt like acid in my mouth. Of what exactly? Of watching my husband create a family with someone else while I cleaned up his excuses. She stepped back, her voice softening, almost pleading. "He needs forgiveness, Wendy. If you keep punishing him, you'll ruin him." I folded my arms. He ruined himself. I'm just refusing to help him rebuild the lie. Her face fell. She grabbed her purse and turned toward the door. "You'll regret this one day." "Maybe," I said quietly, "but at least I'll regret it in peace." When the door closed behind her, I felt something strange. Not guilt, not anger, just relief. The kind that comes when you realize you no longer owe anyone an explanation for protecting yourself. But the storm didn't stop there. That evening, my phone buzzed with messages from Jerry's relatives, a chorus of accusations disguised as concern. "Aunt Carol, he's your husband. He made a mistake. Why are you punishing him? His cousin Lydia's your sister, the baby's family. Have some compassion. His mother again. Don't make this uglier than it already is." I turned the phone face down on the counter and let it vibrate until it stopped. Somewhere between those notifications, I realized what had really happened. The entire narrative had shifted. In their story, Jerry was the hero who helped family. Lydia was the tragic sister who only wanted a baby. And I was the cold, heartless wife who couldn't forgive. No one cared about the truth. People rarely do when the lie is prettier. A week later, Jerry showed up drunk. It was past midnight, and the knock on the door startled me awake. When I opened it, he was swaying slightly, eyes red and glassy. "Wendy," he slurred. "I messed up. I know that now. Everything's falling apart. Lydia's alone. Brian's gone. Mom's furious. I don't even know who I am anymore." "Then maybe it's time you stopped trying to be the savior," I said quietly. He stepped closer, desperate. "I thought you'd understand. You've always had the biggest heart." "I did," I said, "until you broke it." He exhaled, shoulders shaking. "Lydia said you're stronger than I am. She's right." I looked at him for a long moment. Once upon a time, this man was my safe place. Now, he was just another stranger who knew how to hurt me. "Go home, Jerry," I said. "Whoever's left of you, they're not welcome here." He stood there for a heartbeat longer, eyes glistening, then turned and walked away into the dark. When the door clicked shut, I leaned against it, my heart pounding. The baby's cry still echoed faintly in my head, not from down the hall this time, but from memory. There were 3 mothers in this story now, one who lied, one who suffered, and one who finally decided she was done saving anyone but herself. And for the first time, I realized which one I wanted to be. Divorce court is a strange place. It smells like stale air and disinfectant, but you can almost feel the weight of heartbreak pressed into the walls. Everyone there has a version of the truth, but only one story gets written into the record. For months, Jerry and I had tiptoed through the process, exchanging documents through lawyers, pretending civility for the children's sake. But on the day of the hearing, all the quiet rage of the past year finally had a stage. He sat across from me, his suit wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. Lydia wasn't there, though. Her name filled half the paperwork. When the judge called the case, Jerry's lawyer rose first. His voice was smooth, rehearsed. My client, he began acted out of compassion and family duty. He didn't betray his marriage. He made a selfless decision to help a woman who couldn't have children. Every word made me feel smaller, as if they were rewriting reality right there in front of me. Selfless, compassionate, family duty. Funny how betrayal sounds noble when you dress it in moral language. When my turn came, I didn't raise my voice. I just told the truth. Your Honor. I said my husband didn't act out of duty. He acted out of ego. He made himself the hero of someone else's tragedy, and he did it behind my back. You can't build a family out of deceit and call it compassion. Jerry shifted uncomfortably, but didn't look at me. I'm not here to ruin him, I continued. I'm here because marriage is supposed to mean you make decisions together. He made one without me, one that created a life. That's not love, that's betrayal. The room was silent for a long moment. The judge finally nodded. We'll review the evidence, he said simply. And just like that, years of marriage were reduced to paperwork and signatures. Outside the courthouse, Jerry caught up to me on the steps. His voice was quiet, tired. You didn't have to humiliate me in there, he said. I turned to him, the wind whipping at my hair. I didn't humiliate you. I just stopped protecting your reputation. His eyes darkened. You've become someone else. Good, I said. She's tougher. She doesn't beg for loyalty. For a second, something in his expression cracked guilt, regret, maybe both. I thought I was doing the right thing, he murmured. Then stop being surprised that the right thing cost you everything I said. I walked away, heels echoing on the courthouse steps, feeling lighter than I had in months. Life after the hearing settled into a strange rhythm. The kids adjusted faster than I expected. Emma stopped asking if Daddy was coming back. My eldest started walking her siblings to school. Our house, once filled with tension, began to sound like laughter again. But the outside world wasn't as forgiving. Gossip spread fast in small circles. My parents refused to take sides, though their silence spoke volumes. Lydia's story, the one she told everyone, painted Jerry as a man who'd sacrificed his marriage for family, and me as the cold-hearted wife who couldn't understand. I stopped defending myself. Truth doesn't need convincing, it just waits for people to open their eyes. One afternoon, my mother came over clutching a bag of groceries like it was a peace offering. Your sister's struggling, she said softly. You could try to make peace. I smiled politely. Mom, I already have peace. That's why I don't need her in my life. Her eyes glistened. You've changed. Yes, I said, finally. The final court decision came 2 weeks later. I was granted primary custody of the children. Jerry got visitation rights twice a month. The judge noted in his remarks that trust cannot be repaired without accountability. It wasn't a victory. I celebrated more like the closing of a door that had stayed open too long. When I left the courthouse that day, my lawyer smiled and said, You did everything right, Wendy. You handled yourself with grace. Grace. It didn't feel like grace. It felt like survival. That evening, Jerry showed up at the house to drop off some papers. He lingered at the doorway, hesitant. The court made it official, he said, his voice hollow. You got what you wanted. I looked at him, the man who once held my entire world in his hands. No, Jerry, I said quietly. I got what I deserved. He swallowed hard. Lydia's struggling. The baby's sick again. Brian's gone for good. It's all falling apart. I felt a flicker of something, not compassion exactly, but understanding. That's what happens when lies try to build a life, I said. They collapse under their own weight. He stared at me for a long moment, then whispered, You really don't hate me. I shook my head. No, I just stopped feeling anything for you at all. That night, I sat in the living room after the kids were asleep. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. Every echo belonged to me now. For years, I'd believed that love meant forgiveness, that family meant sacrifice. But I finally understood love without respect is just endurance, and endurance isn't noble, it's slow death. I looked at the papers on the table, the final decree stamped and signed, and whispered, I'm free. Outside, rain began to fall softly against the windows, the sound steady and calm. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for anyone to come home. And that I realized was its own kind of peace. It's strange how silence changes once it belongs to you. When Jerry left for good, the quiet in our home stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like freedom. The first few weeks after the divorce, I moved through my days carefully, like I was learning to breathe again. The mornings were the hardest. For 10 years, I'd woken up to the sound of another person moving through the house drawers, opening coffee, brewing footsteps down the hallway. Now there was only the hum of the fridge and the soft rustle of the curtains. But I didn't mind. Peace has a different kind of volume. The kids adjusted faster than I did. Emma began sleeping through the night again, and my eldest started making breakfast for everyone before school. They didn't talk about their father much anymore, but sometimes when the phone buzzed during dinner, they'd glance up just for a second to see if it was him. I never lied. If he called, I told them. If he didn't, I didn't make excuses. Children deserve the truth, even when it hurts. I started rebuilding slowly. The job I'd put on hold when we got married finally became a lifeline again. I freelanced from home, wrote marketing copy for small businesses, and discovered that independence doesn't mean doing everything alone. It just means you get to decide who's worth letting in. Some nights after the kids were asleep, I'd sit on the porch with a glass of wine and let the cool air wash over me. I'd think about the woman I used to be, the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace, who accepted betrayal disguised as sacrifice. She felt like a stranger now. I didn't mourn her. I just thanked her for surviving long enough for me to start over. Then one evening, months later, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but something told me to answer. Wendy. The voice was faint but recognizable. Lydia. I closed my eyes. What is it? There was a pause, a shaky inhale. I'm at the hospital, she said softly. The baby's been sick pneumonia. Jerry's here. He hasn't left her side for days. My chest tightened. I'm sorry to hear that. He's not doing well either, Lydia continued. He looks lost. He keeps saying he ruined everything. I stayed quiet. Then she said something I didn't expect. He still talks about you. Not angry, just sad. He said you were the only person who ever saw him for who he really was. I took a slow breath. Maybe that's true, but I also saw what he became when he forgot. Lydia's voice cracked. Do you hate us? No, I said, but I stopped needing to forgive you. There was silence on the other end, the kind that feels heavy but cleansing. I hope one day you'll be happy, she whispered. I already am, I replied and hung up. Weeks passed. Spring arrived quietly that year. Soft sunlight blooming jasmine by the porch, the world rebuilding itself in small, beautiful ways. One afternoon, Jerry came by to drop off the kids after his visitation weekend. He looked thinner, older, like guilt had carved lines into his face that time couldn't smooth out. The kids are good, he said awkwardly. They're happy here. I nodded. They should be. He hesitated, shifting his weight. I heard you started working again. I did. That's good, he said, eyes on the ground. You were always better at starting over than I was. I smiled faintly. You never had to, Jerry. People who get forgiven easily never learn how. He looked up then, meeting my eyes. Do you ever think we could have fixed it? No, I said softly. Because you can't rebuild something on the same foundation that broke it. He nodded, tears glinting. You deserve better. I know I said. That's why I left. He didn't argue. Just stood there for a moment, hands in his pockets, before whispering, I hope you find peace. I already did, I said. You just weren't part of it. He turned and walked toward his car. I watched him go. No anger, no sadness, just acceptance. Some endings don't need grand gestures. Sometimes peace looks exactly like a man walking away quietly. A year later, I took the kids to the beach. The day was bright and windless, the horizon a soft blur of blue and gold. They ran along the shoreline, shrieking with laughter, their footprints washing away with every wave. I stood there, toes buried in the sand, and let the wind pull my hair across my face. For the first time in years, I didn't feel weighed down by memories. I wasn't the woman who'd been betrayed, or the wife who'd been left behind. I was just Wendy. Whole. Emma ran up to me, holding a small, smooth seashell. Mommy, look, she said proudly. It's broken, but it's still pretty. I smiled, taking it gently from her hand. That's how most beautiful things are. She grinned and ran back toward the water, her laughter mingling with the sound of the waves. I closed my eyes, the ocean breeze cool against my skin. Maybe this was what healing really meant. Not forgetting, not forgiving, but understanding that pain doesn't own you anymore. I whispered to the wind, almost to myself. Peace isn't forgiveness. It's finally choosing yourself. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't just believe it. I felt it.